We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hi, this is Dan Perkins, and my question of the day is the Supreme Court really the people responsible for the shooting in Orlando?
I'm Don Mazzella, and do the Russians really know more about Donald Trump than we do? We're going to find out.
So, if it's important to you, it's important to us, and more on this and other subjects when we return.
It's time for Two Guys from Verona. Each week, you will hear from Dan Perkins, a financial expert, a regular columnist for the Hill website, and best-selling author, and Don Mazzella, a veteran journalist, author, and radio host, talking about things that concern you politically, financially, and socially. They will also try to give listeners a heads up on future happenings.
Well, Dan, we're having a really interesting show today. Besides what's happening in Orlando and other places, we have a very interesting guest, someone I've interviewed in the past, Tom Caporaso. He's CEO of a company that's in the forefront of what I believe is a changing economic reality in America today that I'm going to let Tom discuss. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me back.
You know, Tom, you have some very interesting thoughts, and I'm going to just turn it over to you and let you talk about how you see the evolving world we're in today.
Well, just as a background, Clarus Commerce is a technology platform that powers subscription programs. So just start to think about where shopping is going, where online experiences are going. They're tending to lean more towards the subscription model. If you start to think about the Netflixes of the world or Amazon Prime from a shopping experience or a product like ours, freeshipping.com, they're all subscription-based, and you're signing up for a service where you're getting a suite of benefits, and those benefits might be video, they might be shipping, they might be shopping related, they might be a whole host of different items. But as more e-commerce and ultimately m-commerce happens, subscription model is definitely proliferating through all these channels. So that's what we do at Clarus. We power both our own products as well as power subscription programs for clients where ultimately their brand is up top and our technology platform is powering everything underneath it.
Tom, go ahead.
You go first. No, you first.
I just wanted to ask Tom a real quick question. Given what we've seen since the first of the year of the major closings of a lot of retailers, both specialty and big box, ostensibly they're saying it's because the consumer is moving to the internet platform for buying. Do you see that the opportunity that internet buying will replace the big box stores?
I don't know if it'll ever replace it, that touch and feel of going into a store and either trying on a product or looking at it and making sure that it's the right quality. We are definitely seeing the trend moving towards e-commerce, and now, with everybody essentially having a computer in their pocket with a mobile phone, definitely mobile commerce is on the rise and probably the biggest growing channel for shopping. I think what's happening there is that people are getting more comfortable with the online experience and shopping through it, either through the store website or potentially a mobile app. And you're just seeing more promotions like free shipping, so it doesn't cost much to get it out the door, or having that peace of mind of return shipping. So ultimately, if I couldn't get to the store, I bought it online, but the sweater doesn't fit. A lot of stores are starting to really look at return shipping as a powerful promotion for their stores to drive more sales, and ultimately the peace of mind that helps consumers convert on their e-commerce website. So definitely, I don't think it would replace it, but you could definitely see the trends moving into e-commerce more and more each year. It's just a compounding effect right now.
But Tom, as a money manager who manages portfolios for my clients, looking at a business model where a larger and larger share of the commerce is going to become e-commerce, the overhead to keep the big box store open can be punitive, and that I wonder if even though there still be a group of people, probably diminishing over time, who still want the tactile experience of going into a store shopping, I'm wondering whether the revenue and the profit is sufficient that the big box retailers can in fact keep the stores open with the overhead.
Yeah, as you start to look at the retail industry, the moving parts are really into those distribution centers and warehouses that are the backbone or the infrastructure of the increased e-commerce and mobile commerce. You're right, on the brick and mortar footprint, you have to pay rent, you have to make sure there's merchandise in the store, you have to make sure there's people that can service the store, not knowing if you're going to get one person that day or 1,000 people. So the pure logistics of brick and mortar is much harder to forecast, and then ultimately the overhead is significantly higher versus putting up a website, having engineers make sure that it's up and running, merchandising that website, and then ultimately having a fulfillment center or distribution center on the back end that can get it to the consumer as fast as possible. So definitely from an overhead perspective, you're seeing the biggest growing trend in real estate is around fulfillment centers and warehouses because of the just the impact of more people shopping online.
Don has told us about, and I've experienced it myself, the change that has taken place in the convenience stores, and now McDonald's going to kiosk, eliminating the overhead cost of personnel and the lack of reliability of personnel. Is a robotic model something that the big box stores can control their overhead cost, especially for personnel, as an alternative to trying to keep bodies in the store whenever they need them?
I think in some verticals and in some chains, yes. I mean, if you go to McDonald's, you're going to have a menu of a set 30 things where you can almost hit a touchpad and have it outputted to you. I think there's other areas that maybe don't make more sense, and maybe I'm more old school, but like my local hardware store, and I'm not talking a big box Home Depot or Lowe's, I'm talking a Main Street hardware store. Their focus is completely on customer service. When I walk in that store, they say, "How can I help you?" And I go there because of that customer service. So That's where I say, those are the experiences, and maybe that's different from how they managed it several years ago. But I as a consumer, appreciate that because I don't always know what I need or where it can be found in the hardware store. I don't get that in maybe a big box retailer, and I definitely don't get that online.
Right.
So those are the personal touches that I think will keep those Main Street retailers alive.
I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to turn it over to Don.
Sure.
I'm going to go back to the commerce model, and I wanted to just share with you a thought that I had for some time. Taking into account your experience that you get in the local hardware store, that you don't believe that experience currently exists on an online store, but if you had on your computer keyboard or on your computer screen something that says, "What are you looking for? What do you want to do?" and you visually, what happens on the screen, you pan down an aisle and you come up to a section and down to an area, and what you're looking for is on the screen in front of you. The intuitive nature of the computer anticipates what you're looking for, and it may not be right, but you get a sense as if you're walking through the store. Yeah,
and I think the options are endless. When you start to think of computers, you think of websites, you think of how websites have morphed, in only 20 years. You're starting to see little flavors of that where if you're on a site, you're looking around, there might be a a live chat comes up with a personal assistant that says, how can I help you? And they're starting to try to bridge that gap and put that personalization in there and that great customer service that you would get in an offline store. Not prevalent across the web, but I think you're going to see more and more that try to give you that in-store experience online, and ultimately I think the lead engine could be the customer service component of it that makes it easier, finds it easier, gets you the best price or the best product. You're going to start to see that more and more. So definitely your idea of kind of going through the aisles and seeing it online, I think you'll see more and more of that.
Don?
We're talking to Tom Caporaso. But Tom, what fascinated me and wanted you on the program, you were also a head of a new company that has an idea about how to sell cars, or not sell cars actually, or make them available. Can you explain that in more detail?
Yeah, there's a company called Mass Finland. It's planning to launch a subscription alternative to owning a car. So if you think about a little bit around the Uber model with the kind of the one-click travel as pay-as-you-go option, they're also looking at doing a monthly commuter option where it's a flat fee to cover every trip, as well as potentially like grocery deliveries. And then something that's like an ultimate mobility. It's tailored travel solutions, not just in Finland, but everywhere. So I think it's interesting to see these types of test opportunities. You look at Uber and Lyft and those types of companies really internationally and what they've done to how people travel. It'll be interesting to see how this concept or this pilot works, and then ultimately, does it translate into the U.S.? I don't know. I think the U.S. is still a car-loving kind of auto-centric culture. And if you think about the access to and usage of public transportation, it's probably much lower in the U.S. than it is in Europe. But the other indication is that you start to look at the younger generation, like millennials, and even Gen Xers. They're not buying as much cars as potentially older folks. In 2014, the number of cars sold to the 18 to 34 group was down almost 30% year over year. So you're starting to see people comfortable with technology and people comfortable with these ride-sharing programs, definitely at the younger age, and that might have an interesting impact on a service coming to the U.S. like this.
Don, we got about 30 seconds.
Well, my last question is, what do you think is going to happen over the next 5 years as younger people seem to be migrating back to urban centers? McDonald's just said it was going back to Chicago as the headquarters. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, you're definitely seeing that trend of more people going into the urban settings, like you say. I think you're seeing the trend of more people comfortable with technology, and you're seeing just the pure innovation around technology and how that affects all components of our life. If it's ride sharing, if it's food delivery, if it's online shopping. So, I mean, over the next 5 years, the rapid pace of innovation is just going to continue to scale. And there's ideas that we have no thought around that could be billion-dollar companies in the next 4 or 5 years, a la Uber and Lyft. So I think just in the next 5 years, pure innovation around technology and how that affects people will be tremendous.
Well, the name of your company, because so people can know a little bit about you.
Sure, it's Clarus Commerce, Clarus, and our website is claruscommerce.com.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Welcome back. You're listening to Two Guys from Verona. Once again, here's your hosts, Dan Perkins and Don Mazzella.
Don, we need to remind people that they can go to our website, twoguysfromverona.com, and they can send us an email, and they can see information about the guests we have on the show. As you know, I've got this trilogy on terrorism, and since the shooting in Orlando, I did 14 interviews so far in the last 2 days, and I have one more after we finish this show, and I start again tomorrow morning at 8:30. I guess that's one of the downsides of writing writing books on terrorism, but I thought a lot about what happened over the weekend, and I was struck, quite honestly, by Geraldo Rivera's comments on Sunday night live as he was talking to some of the victims and survivors. And it kind of dawned on me. I was at one point I was kind of angry with Geraldo because what he was saying from his heart, I guess more than his brain, but he was talking about the fact that Americans need to wake up. They need to understand that this threat from ISIS and the Islamic terrorists, the day is coming soon that they won't come in with carbines or AR-15s. They're going to come in with nuclear weapons or weapons, chemical weapons, mass destruction, and not hundreds of people are going to die, and perhaps millions of people are going to die. And when I heard him say that, Don, I was somewhat pleased and angry at the same time. I was pleased that he was saying it to try and help America wake up, but secondly, it's basically what goes on in the first book of my trilogy, The Terrorist Perspective, where I try and help people to understand in this country why they hate us so much and why they want to kill us. And I in all the interviews that I've been doing over the last 2 days, I've been telling the host of the programs, tell your listeners, buy the first book, begin an education, a fundamental education, a rudimentary education, understanding how Islam works and why they hate us. We'll be better off for it as a nation. So as I began to think about what happened, it came to me, and I have a piece that I just literally sent out tonight before the show. And the working title of the piece is the blood on the floor, the dance floor in Orlando, on the hands of the 5 justices who changed the definition of marriage. What most people don't understand, because the mainstream media does not communicate it at all, is that in many Islamic countries, gay people are being thrown off of buildings, they're being stoned to death, decapitated, burned alive, because under the Quran, Muhammad could not accept deviant behavior, as they call it. And so the fact that we have Muslim nations all over the world that are killing gays, LGBT, we have this situation where we in the United States are an arrogant people. Our Supreme Court, the decision on gay marriage was 5-4. And I looked at that, and the more I thought about it over the last 2 days, the more I began to pull together a commentary, which I just said I sent out tonight. And what I'm saying in the commentary is that from the beginning of man all the way back to Adam and Eve, marriage had defined as a relationship between a man and a woman. And what great arrogance, what enormous ego and arrogance these 5 people in our Supreme Court decided that after millenniums, centuries, decades, whatever you want to say, they decided that they were going to decide what marriage was going to be now. And they said it could be a man and a woman and a woman. That was flying in the face of the core tenets of the Quran and the beliefs of the Islamic people. The Quran clearly says, under Muhammad, that they are a chosen people. They have been chosen to lead the world to the end of times. And the Quran clearly states that the only people who can cross over into heaven are Muslims. Everyone else is an infidel, and the only way they can get into heaven is to convert to become a Muslim. If they don't convert, then they must be killed. So here we have 5 justices on the Supreme Court redefining, in a world where we're supposed to be a leader, marriage in a different way. On top of that, we have the President of the United States illuminating the White House with the colors of the gay flag. It sent a terrible message to the leaders of ISIL. And I believe they rededicated their efforts. And they told us 4 days ago that they were going to attack the United States and they were going to attack Europe. And they have attacked the United States. The gentleman who was shooting and killing people in Orlando was on his cell phone praising Allah and praising the ISIL movement, shooting and killing people. So I wonder, Don, if how many gay people have to die before those 5 justices on the Supreme Court begin to question the validity of their decision. See, we have this attitude in the United States that we make decisions, but we don't make decisions understanding the implications. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton decided they needed to change the leadership of Syria, change the leadership of Egypt, change the leadership of Iraq, change the leadership of Libya. What did it do? A lot of people died. Well, that's the music. Sorry you didn't get a chance to talk, Don, but we'll come back. This is Dan Perkins.
And Don Mazzella.
And if it's important to you, it's important to us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back. You're listening to Two Guys from Verona. Once again, here's your hosts, Dan Perkins and Don Mazzella.
You know, Dan, you just outlined a very great concern the American people should have. But I'd like to go on a somewhat lighter note because I think it's in some ways very funny. We now have a report from the Democratic National Committee that Russian-based, and they said government-aligned hackers got into their files and downloaded everything they know about Donald Trump. Well, that what I thought was funny about it, the Russians now probably know more about Donald Trump than the American people do. Presidential campaigns bring out the best and the worst of our candidates. We're going to see a lot more. What I can't figure out is why they did it. I can't figure out why the Russians did it in the first place, if indeed they did, and why, as you just mentioned, the Democrats came out so quickly to say it, that they had done it. It's a very unusual story. The best the American people can get out of this is you better watch your computers. We seem to be hacked all over the place. It's another reason why we should really put in better protection. It's interesting. There's a story in today's Wall Street Journal that we're finally moving to better secure our airlines and our planes with new technology specifically designed to prevent hackers from getting into airline communications hubs. It's not generally known, but that's one of the biggest problems facing aviation today. What happens if the systems that permit planes to navigate were suddenly compromised, as has happened in a couple of locations and not been announced? That's one thing. Now, if the Russians release, as you indicated, they have some of Hillary Clinton's emails, is it beneficial to Hillary Clinton to have them released by the Russians, or, as you indicated, Wikipedia, or not? Frankly, if the Russians do release it, or someone does, before the FBI finishes their investigation, it's going to benefit Hillary Clinton because she can then claim that she's being what's I guess the best word to say, she can't get a fair trial. It's really interesting what's happening with this. You asked, and a couple of friends today asked me, what is going on in Washington? Well, right now the biggest chess game we've seen in this presidential election is being played. Is it better for Hillary Clinton to have everything come out now or later? I think it's better that it comes out now for her, because then we could all dissect it and we can go on to the campaign. I also have to, by the way, eat crow. I said that she would not be the nominee. It looks as if she will be. And it looks as if no matter what the emails say, she will be the nominee. And I'll leave it at that and let you comment.
Well, I wouldn't cook up that crow yet. There's still time before the convention, and who knows what's going to happen. I'm fascinated. I'm gonna take devil's advocate, Don, and ask you a question. What's the possibility if, in fact, the Russians hacked into the Democratic National Committee's computer and has all of the stuff on Trump, that Putin sends it to Trump?
I hadn't thought of that. That's a good answer.
Well, that's why I get paid the big bucks.
Well, it's really interesting. I don't think he's led such a public life. I mean, 3 wives, etc. What could we possibly find? Is he a very tough negotiator? Yes. Is he a businessman that leaves some of the people he deals with short of money? Absolutely. Is he a man that you can't trust his word? Absolutely. We all know that. Yet, people knowing that, we know things about Hillary Clinton. She was broke when they left the White House, and now she's a billionaire. We don't seem to care about these things. What we do care about, and which we're not hearing from either candidate, is who's going to get the economy moving. That's the issue that will decide this campaign. I know I'm a broken record on that, but I really feel that whoever articulates the best plan to the American people and puts it in a way that they understand will win this election. I think every other issue will go by the wayside. There's a new survey out that says that most women don't think that the fact that Hillary Clinton was nominated is an historic event. The study also shows that women do not vote based on such an issue, rather vote on the one issue that is dear to them, which is, are they better off and how's the economy? And women are much more concerned about it than men. And that's going to be the issue.
But if Hillary continues her attacks, and in addition to that, you have the Mitt Romneys of the world who are trying to save the world and save the Republican Party, and they don't attack, they attack Trump on his personal behavior, beliefs, or whatever. I don't know how the campaign gets to the issue of jobs and how it gets to the issue of the economy, because Hillary is going to have a very difficult time running on that platform.
She doesn't want to run on it. She doesn't want to run on it, but the American people want that. If you go out in the field and talk about it, number one issue, the economy. Number one issue, the economy. No matter where you go, focus groups, polls, everything else. The Democrats and the Republicans both have their focus groups out there, and they all say the same thing. It's the economy, stupid, to use an old one, and it's the one that Trump, by the way, has not really addressed. He gives all these, in some cases, bombastic ideas, but when it all comes down to it, who's better able to deal with the economy, Trump or Hillary Clinton? And in my view, Trump by a landslide, because I always go back to this, the ice skating rink in Central Park. Took him 4 years and couldn't get it done. He got it done in 4 months, building it and opening it. There's a lot to be said about Donald Trump. He knows how to get things done. And if he can articulate that about the economy, he'll win in a landslide. As you think about it, 49-1 or 40-10, it's something like that. whoever can get out there and say, this is how I'm going to get the unemployment rate down from 20% or whatever number you want to use, and I put Americans to work, that's the one that will win this election. And we're not doing it.
And as I said earlier, I'm not convinced that Hillary, she can't run on Barack Obama's economic record to continue.
She's not.
Huh?
She's not running on it. She's running away from it. She's attacking Trump, and what he's got to do is come back at her, not about on a personal level, but say, this is what I'm going to do to get Americans working. If he hits at that and ignores her, whatever she says, he'll win the election. There's no ands or ifs or buts.
So you're saying that if he comes out with his plan, his economic plan, and whether you saw the article yesterday on his kitchen cabinet, it's not a bunch of slouches by any means.
No.
Which I think was a good idea. Again, when he put out the list of judges who he thought would be people he would nominate to the Supreme Court, that bought him some support from conservative Republicans. I think his kitchen cabinet also buys some support from Republicans. But I think if he comes out with some ideas that we can grab hold of about the economy, he can basically, you may not like it, but he can basically dismiss Hillary by saying, don't listen to her, she's lying Hillary. She's not going to tell you, she's cheating Hillary. She's not going to tell you the real truth. She can't do anything. She hasn't done anything. And I'm the one that's going to solve the problem.
Well, my idea of the campaign would be for him to ignore her completely, would drive her up a wall. She could come out there. She doesn't look good on TV. I was in a doctor's office yesterday watching her on TV, and there's a great way of doing it. Turn off the sound and watch the performance, and that will tell you a lot. She doesn't look presidential. She doesn't act presidential. And whatever you say about Donald Trump, and you know I'm not a great admirer of his.
I know that.
But the point is, he looks better than she does, and he sounds better. And again, the media, every time they shoot at him, they shoot themselves in the foot.
Right.
But it's interesting. He's better in person. He was here in New Jersey with Governor Christie, and somebody who was there at one of the meetings said it was amazing how he won over the crowd. It was a crowd that was a doubting Thomas crowd here in New Jersey, where he's not very popular. But the interesting thing is that more Trump signs out in New Jersey than Hillary Clinton signs already, which surprised me. But the point was, at this conclave in New Jersey, he won them over because he, like Bill Clinton is a tremendous politician in person.
Was.
Well, I'll still give him the benefit of the doubt. But the point was, when he ran, he was great in person, and Donald Trump is as well. And if the American people see him in action, more than just the sound bites we see in the media, he will win.
Okay, we got about 30 seconds. So I think that Putin said he had a copy of Hillary's email. WikiLeaks says they have them all, and they're going to start releasing them. Probably the most devastating. What's interesting is they won't be redacted. We'll see the whole language, and that could create some real problems. Not so much for Hillary, although it could, but the idea that we'll now be able to see what the government decided they wanted to redact out of the emails that they didn't send us, and that could be very, very interesting about
You're assuming that the media will do that.
Some media will do that. I have no doubt. So we got to take a break. This is Dan Perkins.
And Don Mazzella.
And we're the two guys from Verona. Go to our website, twoguysfromverona.com. And remember, if it's important to you, it's important to us, and we'll be right back.
In this final segment, Don and Dan offer their predictions on what's going to happen in our world.
Dan, I have a question for you.
Okay.
This morning, German bonds went negative. Explain to me what that means.
That's a great question. Negative means that it's called a negative interest rate policy. And it says that, believe it or not, if you want to buy a German government bond, normally when we've bought bonds in the past, we get paid interest every 6 months. 2%, 3%, 1%, a half of 1%, whatever. And we get it every 6 months until the bond matures. 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, whatever. What's happening is that the central bankers who've got this all screwed up, including our Fed, have decided that interest rates is the controlling factor that will stimulate growth in the economy. If they can make interest rates so unattractive, they believe that they can convince people to go in and buy stocks and invest in the markets and invest in the economy. So if you buy, for example, a 10-year German bond, the rate of interest is minus 0.5%. That means for every $1,000 bond you buy, you have to pay the government $5 a year for the right to buy the bond. So that in 10 years, you will have paid $50 to buy the bonds. Your net return on your investment will be you put in $1,000, you paid $50, you get $950. So you're guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed, to lose money. And so the central bankers are saying, gee, if we can prove to people that it's not a good idea to buy bonds, they have to do something else with the money. The problem with it, the central bankers, and we have our central bankers meeting today or tomorrow and Thursday, they were saying prior to the jobs number that they thought they were going to raise interest rates 2 to 3 times before the election. The jobs number came out, which we talked about last week, 38,000 jobs. Now the Fed is saying maybe not so much. Maybe we won't raise interest rates in June, maybe not in July. And if we get a bad number in July, we won't do it in September because we won't raise interest rates during the presidential election. So what's happening is that the quantitative easing, the idea of trying to drive interest rates down to force people to do other things. Here's a quick one, Don. I've been in this business 43 years. Right now, the percentage of household income going to savings, going into the bank, is almost 6%. But Don, it's going into the bank earning nothing, zero. People are saving whatever they can, not spending it, which is why you're seeing retail sales so poor, why you're seeing these places that we talked about in an earlier segment, saw people decline and not spend their money. So we've got 3 minutes. It's your shot, sir.
Well, I just want to read from the New York Post, the economy. In 2000, the average income was $57,340.
Just nationally, Don? Nationally?
Nationally.
Okay.
Median household income. In 2016, it's $57,263, a net loss. Labor force participation in 2009, 65.7. Today, 62.6, almost to 4. I mean, there's 4 or 5 figures pointing out. Hillary Clinton can't run on the economy because it's been poor. Donald Trump can run on it. I'm looking at a sheet that was in the Post on Sunday, and my wife read it and said, "My God, don't people realize that?" But the answer is most people do realize it, and that's why I sound like a broken record today. But I had lunch with a nationally known economist, and the question I asked you. He's an economist for the Voice of America. And around the world, people are asking, why is the economy so slow? Not only in the United States, but around the world. And Voice of America doesn't have an answer. I don't have an answer. Hillary Clinton doesn't have an answer. I wonder who does have an answer in this election year. That's my question.
I do.
Okay. I knew that, Dan. Go ahead.
The reason why the economy is falling apart is that we're overloaded with debt. One of the statistics you didn't point out, not that you purposely forgot it, is that the level of debt in the United States has, Barack Obama in 7.5 years has put on more debt than the total of all the presidents before him. He's doubled the national debt, and by the time he leaves office, it will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $21 trillion. When you have all of that debt and all of the other nations of the world have financed their growth on debt, and you look at the debt to GDP ratio around the world, what you see is so much debt that it's very difficult to grow an economy when you're using such a large percentage of the revenue to pay the debt service. And you've got all these obligations that are unfunded, like the pensions for federal employees. The amount of unfunded pension liabilities and other liabilities for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security are horrendous. There's too much debt, and with too much debt, you cannot grow an economy, and we're out of time. So this is Dan Perkins.
And Don Mazzella.
And we're the two guys from Verona. And remember, go to the website, Two Guys from Verona. Send us a message so we can hear from you. And remember, if it's important to you, it's important to us. Good night.